I found out that I was nominated for a Golden Globe and an Oscar, thank you. The first thing I thought of, believe it or not, was Sister Margaret Francis and the nuns. Weird but true, but don't worry, I'll explain that in a minute. Anyway, the same thought occurred to me in 1988 when I got discovered, literally, in a nightclub. I had gone to college in Los Angeles for marine biology. And after only 2 years, I needed to go back to Brooklyn. Oh, yay for Brooklyn, holla. So my friends took me out to this nightclub, and we were celebrating my last week in La La Land. And the nightclub was called Funky Reggae. And we walked in to the middle of, now wait for it, a contest to see which black woman in the club had the biggest ass. Folks, I do not lie. So I was so appalled, right? So I jumped up on the speaker and I bent over and I said, "This is what you look like, stop it." You don't have to subject yourself to this craziness. Well, 2 big fat bodyguards came over with this little tiny scrawny little man and demanded that I get down. And I was like really, really, really scared. But of course I'm from Brooklyn, so I fronted. I was like, And I started arguing and I cursed. I used every curse word in the book. I know you wouldn't believe this, but I can curse like a truck driver. And, but this little guy, this little man, couldn't stop laughing at me, and it really pissed me off. And then he stuck out his hand and he said, "Tonight is fate. This is fate." And I replied, "You wish." And that little man was Spike Lee. Now, the very next day, Spike Lee asked me to audition for Do the Right Thing. And that was a very pivotal moment for me. And again, the first thing that I thought of was Sister Margaret Francis and the nuns. The announcement of the Oscars and Golden Globe nominations were really, really big, but the thought of Sister Margaret Francis and the nuns were even bigger. The enormity that they had, their effect on my life as a child. Don't you love that? Sisters Only, that was the parking lot. Flooded my mind with both negative and positive memories. Now, there is absolutely no question that I am a force of nature to be reckoned with. And a good reason for this is because I came into this world in a melodrama fit for the Broadway stage. Seriously. I was a product of a scandalous affair. So both my parents were married, but to different people. So one day, my father, dressed very dapper, was on his way to meet his date, not his wife, a date, with another woman who wasn't his wife. Now, this woman, his date, had a younger sister. And that younger sister wanted to go to see for herself what all the hubbub was about this man, right? So she sticks her head out at the window. She sees my father walking up, and she looked at her older sister, the date, and said, "Ay, fool, he's ugly. The garbage stinks, I'm gonna throw it out, I'll be right back." As she was walking down the stairs, my father looked up, grabbed his heart, and said, "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my life. Would you do me the honor and have a coffee with me. That's how we Puerto Ricans say. We don't say, we say, have a coffee. So they went out, they had the coffee, made love that day. I know it's hot, right? And a few weeks later, my mother found out she was pregnant with me. Now, she already had 5 kids with her husband, okay? But her and my father decided to leave their spouses and move in with each other. I told you, scandal on the high seas. Better than any telenovela out there. So my father took on her, all of her 5 kids, and me in her belly. It was great for the first couple of weeks, but quickly, my dad found out that my mother had some serious mental issues. She would have these unwarranted fits of rages. One day, when he caught her having a conversation with the wall, he knew something wasn't right. What he didn't know was that my mother suffered severely from paranoid schizophrenia. Still, he stayed. He was madly in love. Until one day, in a jealous rage, she accused my father of having an affair, which surprisingly he wasn't. But she was so blind with jealousy, she grabbed her pistol that she kept in the freezer, as one does. It actually was wrapped in tin foil. She used to do that to keep it nice and cold. And she started to shoot at him. Bang, bang, bang. He jumped out the window, ran away, and never came back. 8 months pregnant with me, she had no other recourse but to go back to her husband, doing with the 5 kids and me inside her belly with her tail between her legs. When she returned to her husband, she returned, unfortunately, to a very, very emotional and verbally abusive marriage. Her husband didn't understand and didn't care about her mental illness. The day I was born, my mother refused my father to see me in the hospital, but she promised my father's sister, my Aunt Anna, that one day she would bring me to see her. Just a week old, my mother bundled me up, got on the train, and took me to my Aunt Anna's house for a visit. She handed me over to her and said, I need to go to the bodega to do compra. I'll be right back. She left, but didn't come back for 4 years. Yep, 4 years. But don't cry for me, Argentina, because my aunt was wonderful. Unfortunately, 4 years later, she returned only to snatch me out of my aunt's embrace and dropped me off at a Catholic home for unwanted, displaced, or orphan children in upstate New York. It was called St. Joseph's Home for Children. In an instant like that, in an instant, I became a ward of New York State, and the Catholic Church became my legal guardian. My first night there, I was scared. I was 4 years old. Nobody tucked us into bed. No one kissed us goodnight. No one sang us a terrible song off key with a terrible Spanish accent. My aunt used to love that song. Animal crackers in the soup, monkey and rabbits to the loopy loop. For years, I thought that's how the song went. My first morning waking up at the home, I was beaten by this old nun for wetting my bed. I hit her back. I was beaten again. So I reached up and hit the bitch back again. I know, but I was in shock. I mean, I had never been hit before. You know, I was loved and adored and was told I was special, you know? And when that old decrepit nun started wailing at me, my tiny 4-year-old hand and huge spirit just immediately and instinctively hit back. Now, this was just a little of a lot. A lot of mental and physical and emotional child abuse I endured there. If I was a minute late for lining up for meals, if I stood up for another girl at the home that was being beaten, if I didn't finish my entire plate of food during meal times in the cafeteria, I was beaten. If I didn't make my bed properly, I was forced to stand inches away from my locker for 2 to 4 hours. And if I questioned God, forget about it. You know how Catholics are, right? Sorry if there's any Catholics in the room, but it's true. Now, through all of this, even though it made things harder for myself, I stood up. And I not only stood up, I learned the nuns' method of mental torture, and I would intentionally drive them crazy with my intentional bouts of silence. And honey, to a Catholic, to not utter a word for days without a religious agenda behind it, or especially during penance, drove them insane. See, not all the kids fought back like that. Because only a few of the kids there felt unconditional love outside of the home that I had felt for those first 4 years. I knew that kind of love from my aunt, who I thought was my mom. And when you know love like that, you stand differently and know you're not being treated right. And so, yes, even though it did me harm, I fought back. Most of the nuns and staff gave up on me, but there was a counselor and a nun who didn't let me drive them away. In fact, they were drawn to me. See, they didn't just see this angry, troubled kid. They saw, and this is the nun's own word, a light. Sister Ann and Miss Claudia told the home that of all of the kids there, I was the most intellectually advanced. They championed my reading, my ease with math and colors, and made me feel important. I felt special. I felt validated. And every holiday, the home would put on plays, and oh my God, they would be extravaganzas. You know how Catholics like to do it, right? And when I was 5, Sister Ann told me that I was chosen to be the lead bunny in the Easter Day parade. At first I said no, but she kept insisting. Now, usually if you said no to a nun, forget about it. You get your ass beat. But this nun, she didn't do that. Instead, she cooed me gently into saying yes. And she became my very first nun friend. That's what the kids would call it. If a nun was nice to you and became your friend, she was your nun friend. She just wasn't the nun. And it still makes me laugh, you know? And it made me feel so lucky. For years, I was casted in practically every play and every tap recital. And yes, the nuns taught me how to tap. Oh, and yes, miss, they taught me how to hit a baseball. They did, look. Oh my God, and I was good. Oh my God, shortstop and first base. But because of my attitude, they put me in left field. I have to tell you, when I was on that stage or if I was up to bat, my spirit would shine. I mean, I loved it. I truly loved it. And then I was transferred to a group home. And in the group home, there was Sister Margaret Francis. She was the first person okay. She was the first person outside of my aunt and my father that I felt love for. The nuns never told us they loved us. They never hugged us. But Sister Margaret Francis, she told me she loved me. And she was the first woman to challenge me. I mean, she challenged me. Then the miracles of miracles happened. Sister Margaret Francis met a guy and left the order. Scandal! Yeah! It just follows me. Right? Yes, folks, she gave up the habit. Not like this habit, but Anyway. I mean, I was happy for her, but I felt like my anchor had dropped. She came back once to visit me. She saw the chaos in the group home. She saw me just going inside myself. And I remember this day. She grabbed my arm and she looked me dead in the eye. And she said, "Rosie, study hard. Education is your ticket out. Put your head down, do everything right, and get out of this system as soon as possible." And she left. Most people make grand statements, about the importance of education, but Sister Francis spoke passionately and directly to me in a real way with an urgency that I just couldn't shake. I couldn't deny it. I felt in that instant how much she cared for me, and like how much she believed in me, but her departure just pained me so that I just started eating, like a lot. Look. I mean, I got fat. I mean, I'm still cute as hell. Look at the dimples, But I got like fat, like really fat, like when your thighs go shh, 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 right? And I didn't mind being fat. Honestly, I really didn't because I enjoyed eating so much. But the teasing from the other kids was demoralizing. But there was this counselor, Miss Beth, saved me. She would take me on long walks and teach me how to eat properly and stop stuffing my face. She introduced me to Leonard Skinner. I didn't even know who the hell they were. And all these special musicians and wonderful music, but most importantly, the most important gift she gave me came in a form of I don't know if you call it a song, but it's a poem too. And if you will, isn't it a pity that I'm not the prettiest girl in the world, but sometimes I feel when I kick up my heels in the sun, I'm the loveliest one. Without these acts of encouragement and kindness, my few friends that I had made in the home that I'm still friends with, the visits to my Aunt Anna's house and my father's house in Puerto Rico, and of course, my nun friends, I think I would have made it, but I wouldn't be as fabulous. Eventually, my aunt got legal guardianship of me and brought me back home to Bushwick. But I was lost. I was shaken, I was bitter, and I was scared. I didn't want anyone to touch me. No touching, don't hug me, not even a caress on my back, because, in the home, I was in the home for so long, I wasn't used to affection like that, and it felt uncomfortable. It was like I was released from a long prison stint and was, well, to be quite honest, shell-shocked. I would cry quietly, locked in my bathroom for hours, days even. And my Aunt Anna, who I just referred to as Tia, she sat me down one day in my bedroom. That was the hallway. We were poor. But it was my bedroom, honey, and I loved it. And she said, "Ay, Rosita, you can't stay like this. It hurts me so much, but it hurts you more. You have to let love in so you can love. Loving someone is everything. It's even better than being loved. It's our purpose here on earth. Please, have your cry, but for the love of God, please stop crying. And I hope you stop soon even." So irritating. But my favorite memory of my aunt used to suffer from bouts of darkness, that's what we called it. And it used to pain me to see her like that. So one day I turned to her and I said, "Tia, what's wrong?" "Ay, Rosa, I'm so depressed. But tomorrow's another fucking day." Means a lot. Took years of therapy. I'm still in therapy to be at the place where I am at today. So yes, the day I heard about the awards and the film offers, I immediately thought of the women, the cruel and brilliantly supportive women, the women who saw a troubled but bright kid who just needed a care and attention, the women who cast me in plays, the women who taught me how to tap, the women who taught me how to hit a baseball all the way for a home run, the women who taught me the power of poetry, the power of education, the power of self-worth, to believe in myself. And most importantly, I thought about the woman who was my real mother, my tia, Ana Domingo Otero Serrano Roque. They say that it takes a village to raise a child, and I am proof of that. I could have wallowed in self-pity or became another statistic, but I didn't, because I learned from women. I learned from women who helped me through the darkest times, who helped me build a bridge of sturdy hope, who helped me and showed me the way to kick up my heels in the sun, and I became the loveliest one.